my God, I'm not ready for this. I haven't brushed myself or anything. How can you do this to me? Oh, I'm so embarrassed.
Could you read the caption, please?
You call this a hockey fight? My lover and I throw better punches at each other during sex. Now, the cool thing about this one, this was done 6 or 7 years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is probably the 3rd year, when the characters are getting really well defined. There's a little self-portrait tucked into this one.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, it's a big crowd scene, a lot of guys, so I figure what the heck, I'll throw myself in there. Right there. Sans beard. The beard came later.
Grow up with this kind of thing?
Oh, this is kind of common for here. I can't tell you the number of little county rodeos that I would go to that would be an arena about this size. You know, same sort of thing. You come out, you camp out for the weekend. Everybody knows everybody. It's just a great time. This is a whole part of my youth that's like never going to come back again.
Yeah, on the set with me right now are Chuck Haskins, who is dance coordinator for Gay Pride Nipissing, and Sean Martin, comedian and cartoonist. We often hear stories about the Deep South, the mentality of the Bible Belt and so on. Now, you came from Texas originally, correct?
That's correct.
Well, Texas is a big place. I mean, there's a lot of urban centers there.
Yes.
But yeah, just how Lone Star is it? You know, I mean, can you afford to be a Lone Star down there?
If you go outside of Houston or Dallas, marginally San Antonio, you are in hardcore redneck country where the men are men and the women are glad. I haven't been back to Texas in probably, 15, 20 years. But let me tell you, growing up there was pretty tough, particularly when you figure out that you don't quite fit
in
with the whole image of the picket fence and the 2.3 kids in the station wagon.
I was raised in a tiny little town in the panhandle of Texas. It's Hereford, Texas. Its big claim to fame is that it has more churches per capita of any city, outside of the borough of Brooklyn, New York. It has something like 1 church for every 5 people. I was raised on my grandfather's ranch, and this was a working cattle ranch. We lived there until my parents got divorced and my mother moved to Fort Worth, Texas, which was my first experience with living in a big city. And I was about 13, 14 at the time. Living on the ranch, I had my chores, and I dealt with animals, and I was a feature farmer of America, and I had a horse. It was that sort of almost idyllic classical Western upbringing. It was great. It was a fabulous growing up, and I really regret that I never got back to it. It is one of the biggest regrets of my life. And so you make accommodations along the way, and you get involved with things like fag rodeos. So I've been part of the gay rodeo circuit up here now for about 3 years. And primarily I do the graphics for the rodeos every year, but have also been a participant.
See, I've been involved for 6 years. This is actually the 5th annual with IRGRA. Well, as far as camping spots, we fill the main sites plus 110 in overflow. We have, on average, about 3,000 people through the gates or at the dances throughout the weekend.
Where do people come from for this thing?
Everywhere. Everywhere. There's a place to come from, they come here. We've been able to grow a really good crop of fantastic singers who are willing to get up very, very early in the morning and sing in the rain. They sing at all the functions, and we actually have talent that comes in from the U.S. and from other places just to come and sing for us.
And what about how did you get Sean into singing?
into the rodeo?
Yeah, how did you get him singing?
How did we get him singing? I don't really know. He just suddenly one day said, you know, I'd really like to sing it.
When I first came to Calgary, one of the things that I found myself in the middle of was this group that got together on Friday nights at a place called the Midnight Cafe for karaoke. And it was hosted by this absolutely bizarre lesbian named Carla Foster. God, I love Carla. She's one of my favorite people in the world, bar none. She had this sort of rule that if you were going to be part of what we called the slut table, you had to get up and sing. You know? And so if I was going to be part of the slut table, I had to sing. Well, that started a new career.
I think he's always been sort of a closet singer.
Really?
I think.
Singing in the showers?
Yeah. And whenever we'd go to shows, you could hear him singing kind of out of the corner of your head. And we used to say to him, you should sing more. And they go, oh, no.
I do almost strictly country stuff because, as Carla once said, I have the right temperament for it.
First rodeo was in San Diego, California, and that was about 3 years ago now. And I was a member at that time of the Northwest Gay Rodeo Association. And they introduced me and sort of guided me through the events. And that's the nice thing about the Gay Rodeo Associations is that everybody's very helpful, helps each other out. There's a certain amount of friendly competition, but when people are new to the field, everybody helps each other out. Even when you've been in for a number of years, people are quite willing to give you pointers and ideas, and I think that's the whole point of rodeo is friendship.
The rodeo will start on Saturday morning with what are called slack events. And these are things that are designed for a low level of rodeo expertise. In our case, it is standing calf roping, right, where you're standing next to the chute and calf comes out and you have to lasso it. It's something that people can enter and feel safe about entering, even if they screw up, because it's more skill than anything else. And, 11 times out of 12 people miss. So if you miss because you're a first timer, it's not the end of the world, because the guy who's, been doing the circuit for 5 years is just as likely to miss as you are. So it's a safe way to begin the rodeo. I wanted to draw a gay cartoon panel of some sort about these two guys who initially were roommates. And it was going to just be very localized kind of humor, slightly New Yorkerish in tone, and would be the kind of thing that would get away from what I felt was an overt amount of sexuality in gay cartoons, in particular, gay male cartoons. It was one of those situations where there was a magazine in Vancouver called Q, and I had been doing some light little cartooning, like nothing serious. Went to these guys and said, hey, how would you like to have something like this? And they said, sure. And so in their first appearance was 3 panels in this single issue of Q, and then Q folded, like on the next issue. That was really disillusioning. Well, Angles in Vancouver heard about the cartoon and picked it up, and then Extra in Toronto, and then the whole thing started snowballing from there.
I mentioned it had a false start, you said, a few years ago, but now it is the 3rd largest?
It's the third largest gay or lesbian comic scene worldwide. It has an estimated readership now of about between 3.5 and 4 million, which is kind of staggering when you think about it.
I'll say.
It's seen in over 40 papers on 3 continents.
This particular strip?
Yeah, this particular one.
Well, the caption to begin with is in Swedish.
Okay, it's in Swedish?
It's in Swedish, and the translation is, Look, just assure me of one thing. This guy doesn't really mean anything to you, does he?
Mm-hmm. Okay, now, all right, this is in Swedish.
In Swedish.
How many foreign languages has Doc and Raider appeared in?
At its height, probably about between 10 and 12.
Now, would you do the translations, or
No.
you didn't do the translations?
No.
The local paper editors would do that?
Yes.
Did they change some of the captions to fit the local culture?
Sometimes you have to,
Mm-hmm.
because what's really funny in Canada just goes over like a lead balloon in Germany
Mm-hmm.
or Sweden.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would make accommodations for, for cultural things.
Mm-hmm.
But by and large, the humor is pretty universal. It travels pretty far.
A couple of years ago, I got very brave and sent samples of it to the Globe and Mail, and got the nicest rejection letter I've ever received for this thing. Even beyond that, they said, "Oh yes, it's well drawn. We love the humor. We think it's great captioning. We just don't think the readers are ready yet." And this is almost the equivalent of the black cartoons that came up in the 70s. When you had strips with predominantly visible minorities as their characters. And the predominantly white editors at the time said, "Oh my God, we can't do this kind of thing. This is terrible.
Sure.
Our readers will just totally freak out." Well, it's the same thing happening now, 20 years later.
How did Doc and Raider get their names? How did the boys get their names? I might be getting myself into legal trouble here. There is this series of pulp softcore porno westerns, and actually in some cases not so softcore, written by a man by the name of J.D. Harden. They were first published by Playboy Books, and then Berkeley Books picked them up. And it's about these two Pinkerton agents out in the West around the 1880s, 1870s, somewhere in there. And one of them is sort of an Arkansas good old boy, and the other one is a doctor from Baltimore, I believe. And they have been partnered up by the Pinkerton agency, and they're sent off to solve one crime after another. Well, in the process, of course, they boink everything that moves. Doc especially. I mean, he just, "Here, miss, let me put this massaging cream on you to enlarge your bosoms." That scene is in there in one of those books. I started buying them, I don't know how many years ago. I started collecting them. I have all 76 of the first series. Finally finished it out. When I was starting work on the panel, I thought it would make a lovely little homage to take these two, insatiable straight boys, right, and make them these nice, quiet, domestic little fags, right? Raider is a construction worker, but a construction worker who has a fairly good working knowledge of culture and the arts. Doc is a freelance writer and aspires to be the great gay novelist, but instead finds himself doing romance novels, Danielle Steele kinds of things, which causes him no small amount of frustration. The strip moves in real time. So 10 years ago, when I was first drawing it, they were in their mid-20s. Now they're in their mid-30s, mid to late 30s. In fact, I take that back. They passed the 40 mark because there was a comment about Doc's turning 40. So yeah, the boys are getting up there.
Oh, this was gay lifestyle fact number 6.
Mm-hmm.
Fact: the dance step you learned during your formative years as a gay man stays with you the rest of your life. And it's true. At the rodeo weekend, you saw it just like I did, a man doing a fan dance. Now, who in their right mind has done a fan dance in the last 20 years? All right, but that's when Richard became a gay man, and therefore, fans are what he knows. Well, for these guys, it's sort of like early John Travolta disco.
Mm-hmm.
And I always sort of saw Doc as being the son of a retired hippie couple living on the Sunshine Coast in British Columbia. And, kind of emerging out of that slightly new agey sort of feel of, the view of the world. Raider I saw probably coming from the prairies. much more conservative background, and his coming out has been almost a reaction to that. You know, he still has a lot of the very hardcore traditional values, but certainly none of the politics.
Okay.
They definitely approach it as equals. I've never established who's top and who's bottom. Just when you think you figured it out, I switch them. But they do both come into the relationship as equals. They both come into the relationship with probably a higher degree of self-awareness than most people have. These boys have been around the block enough times that they know who they are, they know what they mean to each other. If they're standing next to each other, one will invariably have his hand on the other one's shoulder or around the other one's waist. And they do that because I'm a big believer in touching and in not overt displays of affection. I mean, we're not talking about, you know, swap and spit in the middle of Main Street. You know, we will leave that to the heterosexuals. They're very good at it. Thank God they have something they're good at. Nevertheless, that simple act of touching and that, you know, the little pieces of contact just strengthens the bond between two people. And the bond is the most important thing in the panel. The ceremony of the riderless horse is actually an old military tradition to represent the bond between horse and rider. We have adopted it into the gay rodeo circuit as an annual tribute to not just people who die from AIDS, although that is kind of the primary focus, but anyone who has passed on, you know, in the process of the year, whether they're connected with the rodeo or not. The decision to make Doc HIV positive has gotten me into more trouble than anything else I have ever explored in this comic panel. How could you do this to this man? I did it because I felt that it was necessary. HIV is a prevalent part of the community. It is almost an inextricable part. And I felt that it was important to explore that and explore it through humor. I've used the characters to promote safe sex, agendai, is that the proper term? For a number of causes, both inside the panel and outside. Outside of the panel, they've been used in things like a slide presentation that was put together for AIDS Awareness Week for the AIDS Committee of Ottawa. This was when the panel was maybe a couple of years old, and the characters were still a little unfocused, but it's funny, we took the work out the other night, and I was sort of amazed at how well it stands up. Again, it's exploring sexuality through humor. And in this particular case, of course, we are dealing with pretty hardcore sexual issues. So you are looking at their erotic life together. But it's all done tongue-in-cheek so that you can do funny things about condoms and latex gloves and, you know, a possible risk and other aspects of our sexuality that we sort of take for granted. They've also been used on a series of posters that were done for a clinic in Winnipeg. And the posters wound up being reprinted by other AIDS groups around the world. People picked up the artwork and translated some of the stuff, and off it went.
Free television ads like this one have boosted awareness and support for the walk. But one corporate sponsor is creating an uneasy feeling among some in the gay community, the Toronto Sun.
My feeling is that the Sun's involvement in this is almost a slap in the face to the gay and lesbian community.
For cartoonist Sean Martin, accepting the Sun as a sponsor is offensive. He says the paper has long been an adversary of the gay and lesbian community. He's organizing a counter-walk for Saturday.
The Sun is a homophobic paper. There's no getting around it. A number of their columnists have created serious problems for the community over the past few years.
Are you trying to sabotage the Walk for Life?
No, not at all. Not at all. What I'm trying to do is provide a venue for members of the community who are so annoyed with the Sun's presence at the official walk that they weren't going to go at all. I didn't want to see the partner groups like Casey House and 127 Isabella having to suffer because somebody at From All Walks of Life made, in my estimation, a tactical boo-boo.
Merely being HIV positive is not a death sentence. It wasn't when I did this to Doc. It certainly isn't now. Nevertheless, it does alter people's relationships. But I mean, it wasn't becoming like a major touchstone or a major theme throughout the panel. It was just something that every now and then would be explored. Until we did the big breakup series. The series deals with probably the toughest look that a couple can have over being HIV mixed. Rader tells Doc that he can no longer handle the relationship as it stands, and that he has actually been dating someone else. He's in a big quandary because he doesn't know whether he wants to stay in the relationship or if he wants to go. And of course, what's driving this is Doc's HIV status. Because in it, all of the emotional baggage comes out. You know, Rader not wanting to ask how it happened because he trusts Doc implicitly. And yet at the same time, you know, that unspoken question can drive you crazy. You know, where did it happen and who was it? And did it happen while we were together? Doc on his side, of course, feels like they have to live their relationship and fast forward. You know, with luck, in his mind, with luck, they would get 10 years together, as opposed to his parents having 40. And so, you know, everything that they do has to be done at an accelerated pace in order that they can have a full relationship together. There's a lot of anger and a lot of bitterness and a lot of resentment that comes out of that. That's not directed at Rader, but now all of a sudden, Rader becomes the target because Doc has had nothing else that he could focus this anger on. And Rader's wanting to leave the relationship suddenly gives him one. Things get nasty. I mean, really nasty. The boys have a major fist fight in the kitchen that shatters both of them because of the level of brutality. Initially, the ending was going to be left with a questionable resolution. You didn't know whether or not Rader was going to stay. And what I wanted to do was explore trust and how do you rebuild it in subsequent panels, going back to the single panel thing. Eleanor said, don't even try. You have to give it an ending. And I gave it an ending that just fanned the flames even more. Because, I mean, here we are talking about, you know, HIV and its impact on coupledom. We're talking about, you know, gay male domestic violence. Well, just to throw everything else into the hopper, after the fight's over with, they're sort of picking up the pieces of things. I mean, they've broken furniture. They have really trashed the room. And they're lugging all this stuff outside to the garbage. Rader tells Doc that one of the reasons why he wanted to leave the relationship was because he was scared. He knows that he can't be scared anymore. He can't be scared of his reaction to things. He can't be scared of the way that Doc feels. And he certainly can't be scared of some little virus. And again, you don't see it, but what happens is that they have sex, unprotected, which is Rader's way of reaffirming the commitment between the two of them, that he's not going to let anything come between them, particularly not some little virus. Boy, did I get crap for that. You know, you're promoting unsafe sex. It's like, guys, did you really read this thing? You know, do you understand why it's happening? You know, or are you just glomming onto an issue, which I found some people would do? You know, they would look at the panel and they would find an agenda and they would find issues. They're not looking at the larger picture, and in this case, the larger picture was very important. A lot of people did see it, thank God. A lot of people really did understand what happened. But it was such a powerful statement that now all of a sudden I was stymied. I didn't know where to go. I couldn't go back to the single panel drawings anymore because this thing came down like a sledgehammer. And it meant such a radical shift in the panel that I had no idea what to do next. I had the good fortune to be involved with a man by the name of Steve for many years. And we won't mention last names because his family still thinks that I'm the spawn of the devil. And we don't want to breach any problems there. Stephen died of AIDS in 1982. And I don't remember what the exact incident was, but I can remember sitting there drawing this thing and realizing I was drawing this to keep him alive. And I think that was one reason why about a year ago I started shutting the panel down. Because I've gotten past him now. He was a very important part of my life, and I still love the man dearly, and his memory is very, very important to me because we shared an awful lot of stuff over the years that we were together. And he was actually the third piece in the inspirational puzzle, because a lot of what you see in the panel reflects a lot of what our life was like together. There is still a lot of anger, undirected, unfocused anger, that I'm carrying because I don't understand why Steve had to die at his age. Here was a man who was working on a master's in social work. He wanted to work specifically with gay and lesbian street kids and get their lives turned around and put back in order. He wanted to give something positive back to the world. And instead he gets cut down at the age of 30. 31. He was 31 years old actually when he died. I have never understood that. And yes, it makes me angry. It makes me incredibly angry. And I know that a lot of the rage that I was writing about in that panel was based on that. Since 1981, when this thing first appeared and we were all calling it GRID, and nobody really knew what it was except that it was hitting gay men, I have lost now close to 150 friends. And there was a lot of anger about that. Why did this guy have to go? There was no reason for it. Just bad luck of the draw? Somehow that's not enough of an answer. Yeah.
Well, first of all, let me get your name.
My name is Sean.
Okay.
It's spelled the right way as opposed to Sean Martin, which is spelled the wrong way.
When did you start competing in rodeos?
Today. Or yesterday.
Today? Oh, this is your first day?
This is my second day.
Second day doing it?
And I feel every moment of yesterday. And the rodeo is just like, I grew up as a kid in Calgary with the Stampede and always wanted to do it, I guess. I want to be cowgirl. And I don't know if I want to do it as much after this weekend. Maybe next year I'll be a big volunteer. I still want to be involved in it, but I don't know if my body will hold out to be a competitor or not.
Okay. What events are you competing in? Rodeo?
I am competing in steer riding, chute dogging, goat dressing, and the wild bull drag.
It's goat dressing, and it's one of the camp events, one of the events that I guess anybody can get involved in it. You have 2 persons on the team. It doesn't matter whether they're male or female. And one person is supposed to run up along with the other. They grab the hind legs of the goat, raise them up in the air. The other person has a set of underwear stretched between their arms and pulls the underwear up over the legs. The other person grabs the underwear and snugly pulls it up over the rump, and you let the goat gently down and race back as fast as you can to the finish line. And at that point, you get your time.
My partner and I did steer decorating, and what is, you have the steer in the chute with a rope around his horns, and at the timer signal, they pull the gate open, the steer comes out. I have to try and control it. I'm the guy at the head of the horse, or the steer. I have to control it, take the rope off of its horns while my partner is tying a ribbon on its tail. And then he has to run to the timer. So he can't touch the timer until such time as I have the horns, or the rope removed from the horns.
Okay.
So it's a time to them too. And we came in 4th.
Is that an event that's unique to the gay rodeo circuit?
Yeah.
Or? Okay.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, this isn't our bed, this is the beach. We're wearing Lycra and listening to dance music. Doc, quick, wake up, we've been kidnapped into a phone sex ad. First off, I was having a little surreal fun with the fact that they are a cartoon printed in a newspaper. Okay? The second thing is the fact that, I mean, they're pretty humpy. You know, these boys work out, and it shows. You know, they look good. Wishful thinking on the part of the artist. It's also commenting on the nature of gay advertising. Okay? I mean, it doesn't matter whether you are selling phone sex, or you're a chiropractor, or you're, you know, just the plumber down the street. I mean, if you've ever seen the LA gay yellow pages, it's hysterical. Everyone is selling their body first, and then the service. And I always found that to just be hysterical. I mean, I don't care if my dentist has well-tuned abs. All right, I want to know that he's a good dentist. Certainly contemporary gay culture, but in a much larger sense, universal culture. Pop or otherwise figures into the panel on occasion.
Then there are the ideas that seemed funny at the time until you get them all inked up and you realize they're not really very funny. Batman in Kabuki. I'm not sure where this came from. It seemed like something funny at the time. And then when you get it finished, it's like, it's really not.
I mean, yeah, there is the action figures one, where, you know, they come in their own little boxes and they have their little outfits, and you know, it's sort of like the G.I. Joe dolls that we all wanted as kids but never got. As the panel is printed, I receive a contributor's copy, and I couldn't help but notice that no matter whether you were in Sweden or Israel or the Ukraine or New Zealand, it was the American view of gay stereotypes that sort of led the parade. Certainly the bar scene seems to be almost universal, and the way the bars work. There haven't been a whole lot of panels that deal with the bars. I guess because I don't find bars funny, and it's real hard to get humor out of a situation that by its very nature is pretty tense. You know, am I going to get picked up tonight? Am I hot enough? Oh my God, did I remember to clean the apartment before I left? Geez, am I wearing clean underwear? I mean, all these little questions that come up that, sure, they're kind of funny, but it's sort of sad in another way.
But just, you know, the whole thing of, you know, call me with the little phone number tabs. You know, I mean, it's kind of a joke unto itself. I couldn't use it for the two of them because, of course, you know, they don't want other people calling them, but happening to a third party, I don't know. I mean, it's almost there, but not quite, and therefore it got scotched.
With the exception of a couple of panels, it's never specifically stated whether it's a gay bar or a straight bar, which always sort of throws people off a little bit. It's like they're playing pool in what probably is a straight bar except for that IML poster on the wall in the background. So my approach to the bars is let's make them plain and simple and a socializing environment where the humor can come out of their reactions to other people.
And chute dogging is one of the rough stock events, and requires possibly a little more stamina than some of the other events, but it's something that both guys and gals will do. It's an individual event, and the idea of the event is you're in the chute with the animal. It's a steer. The steer is basically about 600 pounds in size, and you grab the steer around the head, one arm basically secured in the mouth of the animal, the other one around the horn of the animal. The chute opens, and you guide the animal over the start line, which is about 10 feet out. And at that point, you start to try to dog the steer. That is, twist the steer's neck and bring the steer down to the ground. When the steer hits the ground, then your time is finished, and you're judged upon the amount of time it took you to get the steer down to the ground once it's over the start line.
Dear Bob, Bob is a real person. Dear Bob, well, as you may have heard, Doc did it again. He managed to win the Toronto Mr. Drummer contest, and that means a return to the finals. This time, he said, he was doing it right. He'd have it all down pat, and after lots of study, he certainly knew his leather lore. We arrive in San Francisco to a flurry of activity: registration, credentials, regulations. There were costume fittings and rehearsals of the big production numbers choreography. Look, damn it, I'm the fucking director, and I'm telling you this is too goddamn big. I want to see flesh out there, understand? I dare say perhaps some of you gentlemen would feel more comfortable performing Les Sylphides. However, then came Doc's big night. We were in the fantasy section of the evening, and I was damned if I was doing that human xylophone again. That's a reference to the first trip out there where his talent part was having Raider locked inside of a restraint where just his head and his hands were visible, and Doc standing there with a great big paddle that says, "And now I shall play the Flight of the Bumblebee." Doc thought otherwise, and before long we'd brought our discussion on stage, much to the chagrin and, believe it or not, the judges and audience's delight. It managed to score him enough points that he wound up one of the finalists, and I gotta tell you, it was a sight, seeing all three of them up there in brotherhood and friendship. Then came the announcement he'd been waiting for. He'd worked so hard for something that came down to a few simple words. The International Mr. Drummer for 1993 is... He'd won. God only knows how, but he'd won. And even so, he handled it with his usual aplomb. They had this huge production number congratulating the winner, followed by the bestowment of prizes. To be honest, I wasn't really sure if he actually needed some of this stuff. From there, it was almost mind-numbing. Interviews with the gay and lesbian media, and I couldn't resist this. Would you classify this as an affirmation of personal style or merely a beauty contest whose participants pandered to the baser instincts of judges and an audience who would otherwise be serving the needs of the larger lesbian and gay communities? Or, failing that, would you see this as an almost guerrilla theater action whose in-your-face methodology is purposely designed to annoy and confuse the more sexually repressed, and why? It was an exciting weekend filled with excitement, and new friends will cherish all our lives, and of course the contest itself. But he wanted it, he was willing to work hard to get it, and by God he did. I was so happy for Doc. It was almost like a new era of his life was about to begin. One bright and full of promise, one where anything could happen. Excuse me, Mr. Title Holder, but I think one of the cats just threw up on your sash. Now, you want to know what the story was behind that one? I entered the 93 Toronto, Central Canada as they called it, although it was hardly central, it was very eastern, but the Toronto Mr. Drummer contest purely on a whim. I knew one of the organizers, and I sat down with him on the steps one afternoon, and he was bitching about the fact that he only had 2 contestants. And I said, oh, what the hell, give me a form. I'll enter. I'll call a couple of friends of mine in North Bay. They'll enter too, which they did. the way that these things work, of course, is that you have the stock presentations. You have evening there, and you have sports there, and you have talent. All right, talent is usually the fantasy part of the evening. I had worked this out with a buddy of mine in advance, and that afternoon, when we were going through, the little mini tech, which is sort of like, okay, what do you need in the way of lighting? What do you need in the way of sound? Insofar as lighting, just make it general lighting, and it's going to be a construction worker fantasy, and I mean, it's going to be pretty cut and dry. And everyone sort of nodded their head and went, oh, okay, that's nice.
Our next fantasy is from Sean Martin, the illustrator. He is the illustrator and drummer.
We're going through things, and they're all just sort of bopping along, and they start to announce my fantasy.
We're supposed to have fantasies, not fights.
And the guy that is participating in it with me, he and I start this hellacious argument backstage. It was great. We had everybody fooled for about maybe the first 15 or so seconds, and then they caught on.
I'm not getting in the middle of that.
And then I was told after I had won that there was no way in hell that I could take that to San Francisco, because the person who organizes the evening is a by-the-books kind of person. You do not pull this crap on her. So I wasn't able to do that fantasy in San Francisco, which was a real shame, because I think it would have been a lot of fun.
Why did you choose a fighting fantasy?
Because it's my big sexual thing.
Tell me about your T-shirt.
Yeah, well, you've seen the books. I needed something that spoke to my inner child.
Oh, I see. Did you? So you scanned in one of the covers?
Mm-hmm. Well, I took it down, and it's actually just an enlarged photocopy that's been made into an iron transfer. And there it is on the shirt. And
has this worked for you?
On a couple of occasions.
One of the things that people do comment about with the cartoon panel is what they perceive to be a high degree of domestic violence. The boys wrestle, the boys fight, the boys box. The boys just get in there and mix it up. It does play into their relationship a lot, because it's something that I personally enjoy. And so I figure, what the heck, if I'm going to put myself on the line, let's put everything out on the line. I do enjoy wrestling. I do enjoy street fighting. I do enjoy boxing. I'm also wise enough to know that sometimes I'm going to win and sometimes I'm going to get my ass beaten. Comes with the territory. But if you're in a scene like that with someone that you can trust implicitly, and you have to trust them implicitly, it can be a hell of a lot of fun. It's certainly a lot like roughhousing as kids. But I think there's something more to it. I don't like analyzing it, because I think that's going to take all of the charm and joy out of it. Nevertheless, I do know there are things about it that I recognize. It is certainly the exchange of energy. I mean, it's one of the most energy-intensive scenes that you can get into. It is also, this is going to sound terribly sexist, and it's not meant to, it is one of the most quintessentially male things that you can do with another man. The distinction between an erotic fighting scene and domestic violence is a really crucial one. In an erotic scene, you have to have a sense of mutuality. You have to have a huge amount of trust in your partner. You have to understand that, like in any scene, there is a limit beyond which the two of you are not going to go. In domestic violence, the rules all get thrown out the window because people are acting purely on emotion. There is no rationality behind it. It is strictly for power. It has nothing in it that is erotic at all. It is strictly trying to impose your will on somebody else and doing it in an overtly physical way. In all the times that I have been involved in an erotic fight, okay, and I don't, the funny thing is I don't even classify them as erotic. They certainly do hold a certain sexual thrill, but it's not an erotic one.
If it's not erotic, what kind of a sexual charge is it?
It just is. Oh yeah. One of the things that we've had to deal with at the gay rodeos is people who feel that at a rodeo animals are abused for the sake of entertainment. And I'm not going to deny that that happens in the big straight rodeos. It does. The way that rigging is put on some animals is specifically designed to make them even angrier and make them buck even harder. We do not do that. We don't do that because it's not fair to the animal. It's not fair to the competitor to put them in that kind of danger. I think we have more respect for the stock on the gay rodeo circuit than they do in some of the straight rodeos. But then, you know, we're so sensitive anyway.
All right, here we go.
Insofar as safety issues, even though we have here in Calgary some of the best stock you're going to see on the gay rodeo circuit, it is nowhere near the level of stock that you're going to find at, say, the Stampede. Ours is probably more along the level of a semi-pro or advanced amateur rodeo. The biggest safety issue that people have to deal with when they're out there in the field with either a steer or a bull is you have to be aware of the fact that you have this animal under you that does not want you there and is going to do everything in its power to get you off of there, all right? And when you fall off, which you will, you had better have enough presence of mind to get the heck away because this animal's going to be very upset.
I also pull on using my friends a lot.
Okay.
And two of the people who were the most instrumental on this were John and Paul Weeks Bassett. Paul died a few years ago, unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, but they were I mean, John still is, two of the most amazing people. Their apartment is sort of like walking into an issue of Architectural Digest. And so, of course, being such perfect fags, they provided tons of fodder for cartoons. So we have situations like this, where you have Raider in basically work clothes, you know, apparently just came home from the construction site, and Doc standing there, you know, half dressed in a tuxedo and holding copies of the New Yorker and a video cassette. And the caption is, "Look, we don't have much time. Get in the shower. Your tux is laid out on the bed. Here's recent issues of the New Yorker and Architectural Digest as well, the Three Tenors video. The Weeks Bassets have invited us over for a casual dinner."
The bashing storyline, the bashing series, actually came shortly after Paul died. It was a really tough one for all of us because Paul was an extremely giving, very generous soul, and God knows John took it hard. A lot of it came out of a phone conversation that John and I had one night, where he was trying to come to grips with losing Paul and not understanding why. You know, of course, this is bringing out my own reaction on what it was like to lose Steve and being angry at God for doing this. You know, the initial two panels on this thing, I mean, it was just two big panels, right, when we started this one. And the first one is someone just getting the crap beaten out of him by a whole bunch of guys. The very next panel is Doc going into a church and having this little sit-down discussion with God. And it's something I've always wanted to do, you know. Just sit the guy down with a beer and say, all right, tell me, what the hell is going on? You know, why do you do this to people? You know, why do you take perfectly good people and make their lives into such a tremendous challenge? The resolution within the series is left somewhat vague because, of course, there are no answers to something like this. However, I did get to have a little fun with the whole power issue, because as Doc is leaving the church, he says to God, you know, that because of his HIV status, he's probably going to be up there pretty soon anyway, and so God's going to have a number of things to answer for. Some people, of course, were morally outraged. You know, how could you even think of making such a theological statement as this? But interestingly enough, the theological groups themselves like integrity and dignity. Loved it because it was broaching that kind of seriousness that we have to take as gay people in terms of our relationship to, you know, a greater power, whatever that greater power may be. This is a piece of email that was forwarded to me when we were doing the bashing series. And it's the kind of email that, let me tell you, really kind of romps you all over the head and says, you're doing the right thing. It's from a guy in Toronto named Chris. As I left Triangle Squares at the 519 last night, I picked up, as I do every other Thursday, the new issue of Extra. And as I always do, I turned directly to Doc and Raider. And boy, did I get a nasty shock. Raider's been gay bashed. This is dreadful. I haven't felt this affected by a cartoon since Doc was diagnosed HIV positive a couple of years back. There was a continuing tale of Doc and how he and Raider began to deal with his diagnosis, and I know I got quite moist about the eyes. Yeah, right, well, we'll pass on that one for a moment. I'm sorry, this is a tough one too. Doc and Raider are like, well, not my very best buddies, but my neighbors. People who I would see on Church Street on a Saturday carrying groceries or sitting on the steps and nod and say hello and maybe pass the time of day. Their lives are much like mine. Gay and certainly sex forms part of the amusement of life, but they dance, they go to yard sales, they have cats, and they burn dinner on occasion. Oh God, yes. And Doc is HIV positive, and they've had to adjust to life with that, much like too many of my friends, and now Raider's been gay bashed. That too is part of the world I live in, and it's awful. I hope Raider's going to be okay, Chris. When I got that email, I was really taken aback. I knew that the panel was going to have an impact on the readership, because every so often, you know, I'll get little emails from people, but something like this that was sent anonymously out onto the web and that got people asking what was going on. And Chris actually went through and transcribed all the others in the series and put them out there every week so that people could read this stuff. The boys, yeah, the boys have definitely verged into magic realism for a lot of people. They are cartoon characters, of course, but people look at them and see so much of their own lives reflected into them and so much of the lives of people around them that they are virtual people in many respects. I mean, if I drew something that someone didn't like, the comment would not so much be on the fact that I had drawn something that they didn't like, but, well, Raider would never do that.
Oh, you can't tell up here who's gay and straight? You're watching, you learning yet? Oh, that stuff, guacamole, we'll use that word. That stuff that comes in piles in the backyard, right. All right. What happens when a straight cowboy steps in your guacamole? Checked it out. That's stuff, all right. What happens if a gay cowboy steps in?
Rodeo clowns in gay rodeo function almost exactly the same as rodeo clowns in straight rodeos. They provide two things. One is safety for the contestants, because if someone gets thrown off of a bull, the primary job of the rodeo clown is to divert the bull away from the cowboy. Second thing they provide is entertainment. Because there's a lot of time required getting people into rigging and getting them set up for their ride. Okay, and so the clowns are out there to keep the audience amused. By and large, the humor at a gay rodeo will be a little more specialized. I mean, for example, this year we had rodeo clown who was out there who was planting a Martha Stewart garden. Somehow I just can't see that happening in a straight rodeo. I am not a ham.
Well, can you show me the first Fluffy?
The very first.
The very first Fluffy.
The very first Fluffy is this stunningly pathetic little piece of work. 2 years ago, we were having the campaign for Empress in this city, the drag court thing. And it was a really bitchy campaign. We have 4 candidates, none of whom liked each other, and every one of whom seemed to be destined to, outsling the mud. Well, things were getting so ugly that no one really wanted to go to any of the campaign shows. And so I figured, all right, we need some comic relief.
It's got cha-cha jewelry. Mary's got cha-cha. Look at that. Karaoke cha-cha. I love it. Is she going to sing a song first? Ladies and gentlemen, what do we call her? Madonna? I mean, Smith.
When I was 12 years old, it was decided by my Aunt Lorraine that I was going to be the cultured one in the family. And so she made this her mission, and so she would take me to, the Fort Worth Grand Opera.
She became quite the little cult favorite in the court. Everyone got a big laugh at her because she could say and do all the things that everybody wishes that they could. And so, she could be as bitchy to people as she liked and get away with it.
Okay.
And in a matter of a year, she'd gotten her own permanent lifetime title. She is one of 2 inanimate objects throughout the entire international drag court system who has a title. She is a personal princess for life.
She also took me to see my first piece of big legitimate theater, which was the Mary Martin touring production of Hello, Dolly. Okay, and this came to, I think we saw this in Dallas. Yeah, we traveled to Dallas to see this. And we were sitting on the next to last row of the orchestra. And of course, there's a number about, put on your Sunday clothes, and it's a big production number that involves a train coming on stage. The train comes on stage and people stood up and applauded. Well, I was 12 years old at the time, and I looked around and I thought, well, damn, if they're that easy to impress.
This layer of lace that's used up here in the collar, $15 a meter. This is Belgian-made lace that was sent to her by a devoted friend.
Oh, really?
Yes. Yeah.
So she has a fan. She has a fan base.
She has fans. Yeah. I mean, she's apparently quite loved and respected in the Regina court.
Oh, really?
Because she apparently chewed on the tit of the Empress one night, and so they just love her in Regina. I'm saying apparently because I wasn't there. Fluffy travels without me.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
So do some of the fluffies go on loan to people?
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
I see.
Yeah. If someone is out of town, they take a Fluffy with them, and Fluffy's introduced as part of protocol. She receives a ball pin. She is treated like a real title holder, which she is. Okay. She's a sock with a title. And it ain't 20,000 leagues under the sea.
Way back in the dark ages, before the invention of either written records or computers, I wanted to be a set designer. And seriously considered pursuing it for a while, and then backed off when I realized that it was one of those things that it's probably better a hobby than anything else. And so most of my theater work has been on the avocational side of things.
I'm curious about doing these costumes. Do you get an appreciation for what some of the female impersonators go through?
Oh, God, yeah. Because, I mean...
Did you realize that before you...
No, I thought these were just going to be dumb little things that, that you'd knock off. But after a while, of course, you start getting really serious about it, particularly when she starts getting a reputation. And you have to start thinking about things like, okay, I can't use that fabric because the scale is off. Like, big pattern prints don't work for a
fluffy.
For a 9-inch high sock. So you have to be aware of scale of not only the fabric but also the accessories. Like oversized lace. Sorry, big no-no. And yeah, you just after a while you start thinking to yourself, Jesus, if it's this tough for a damn little sock, what must it be like for some 6'2" guy? Now, a little story here. One of the Safondas traveled once, as opposed to a Fluffy. She went to Portland, and this was like Med Disco Safonda, like silver material like this, big silver cowl on her, the whole 9 yards. Well, they had everything stored backstage in this one room. Not only her, but like everything that the court was using for its entrance, all of its props, all of its costumes, all of its jewelry, everything. In the middle of coronation, someone broke into the room. The only thing that was stolen, Safanda.
I've written a few plays. Some have been good, some have been sort of, well, they've been nice tries, let's put it that way. I think my favorite is a little one-act called Friday Night Dances, about these two guys who pick each other up at a bar, and they go back to one's apartment. It is revealed that one of them is a virgin, knows absolutely nothing, hasn't got a clue of what's involved. But he really wants to do this, and so the pressure's on both sides.
At the bars, everybody just sort of stands around. And then I met you. For the last half hour, I was trying to decide whether or not to go through with it while you sat there making really goofy faces at me.
He decides that the one way that he's going to get through this really tough thing is by turning it into this massive fantasy. And therefore they won't be themselves, they'll be somebody else, and therefore he can kind of drop out of being himself, he'll be somebody else altogether, and that'll make it easy, right? The other guy's looking at him like, let's just go to bed, I did that with a friend of mine in Ottawa, and for a little while we had this little two-man theater company going around where I would write the scripts and we would perform them. He would do the directing.
This is Sister Mary Fluffy of the Order of the Gentle Rinse Cycle. Sister Mary Fluffy is great because she allows me to do all sorts of theological things that I wouldn't normally be able to do.
And the Lord God said unto the man, Behold, thy knowledge of sex shall be a curse upon thee and thy generations, and thy loins shall be a trial to thee. For whensoever thou goest into a public place, then shall thy member rise up. When thou sittest to eat and drink among thy fellows, likewise shall it rise up. Yea, even when thou standest before the people to preach unto them in my name, shall it rise up and be a scandal unto thee, and make an unseemly lump in thy garments. Yet when thou goest into thy wife, shall thou member wither and rise up.
Oh yeah, Sister Mary Fluffy does Genesis. Sister Mary Fluffy does Fabulous Tammy Faye Baker.
Oh really?
Oh yes, oh yes. Her premiere was, she used to have this little basket, right? That was sort of like held like here, so she looked like one of those little alms nuns that you see in New York subway stops. So here's this little woven basket, and on the front of it it said, "Alms, please." Right, and she was performing this Tammy Faye number, "Glad That I'm a Christian." In 2 minutes and 30 seconds, she'd gotten $12 in tips. All of it went to God. All of it.
All of it? Okay.
We shall be free. Spin straight, walk right, have a little faith.
This is what I wore in the rodeo this year. Now you can't really see what it is, but actually there's a number there, 522. It's covered with mud. It's covered with mud because I got dragged by a really upset steer through 6 inches of mud. I had never entered wild drag before, and I was approached because the team in question had lost one of their participants. And so they asked me if I would come in kind of as second string on this. The idea behind it is that the woman stands 10 feet from the chute and actually has the rope that's connected to the animal. We stand 25 feet away from the chute, the drag and I, and when the chute opens, we have to run to where the woman is and get the animal under control, get it to a point 40 feet away from the chute, put the drag queen on the back, and get the animal across the line with the drag queen on the animal's back. The other two people on this thing were complete novices. They were first timers. They had never been in an arena before with livestock. They didn't know what to expect. One of them, Barry, our drag queen, was absolutely petrified both days, scared to death. It had been raining all night long. Not just a little rain, a lot of rain. And when we got up the next morning, in fact, there was a lot of concern expressed by the officials on whether or not the arena was actually going to be safe for competition. So they went out and they really took a hard look at it. And they were doing accommodations all day. So we tromp out there, Barry and Sean and I. And of course, Sean is saying, "Oh, don't get my dress muddy, don't get my dress muddy." Because someone else really wanted this dress after the event was over with.
Calgary, sponsored by Money Pennies. Well, Michael, your hair looks wonderful. Best has looked on you so far.
At one point, Sean let go of the rope while I still had hold of it. And I find myself flying through the air, landing in the mud, getting dragged, I don't know, somewhere. It felt like I was getting dragged all over the friggin' arena.
That is a perfectly wonderful dress just ruined, Michael. See, Jerry, it is right. That's the way they shake that stuff.
But boy, what a rush. It was just too much fun. Way too much fun. So of course I'm entering next year.
Good job. Good job. There's a whole scene of people who are into mud and stuff.
Oh, I know. Isn't it wonderful?
Well, it looks like it could.
Yeah, really.
This year, Long Beach, California, running with Michelle Spignol, Chula Vista. Michelle.
Was it good, Sean?
It was the best, guys. It was the best. Let's go down and cheer him on. Now I'm going to go clean off.
The inspiration for the panel comes from a variety of sources. First and foremost is just sitting and listening to other people. There is a place in Toronto called The Steps, which is written about in the second book. And it's the sidewalk outside of a little coffee house called the Second Cup. It has been for many years a traditional hangout for gays and lesbians who live in the Church Street area of Toronto. And I got some of my best lines just sitting there, listening to other couples talk about their lives, listening to people bitch about their boyfriends, listening to someone else who was on the rush of, oh my God, I've just met the perfect man, and oh, we went out last night and it was just fabulous. Well, and so people sit there, and because it gets such great exposure in the summer from the sun, people will sit there and they'll work on their tans, right? And they drink their coffee, and they gossip, and you cruise the people that are walking by, and it becomes a whole thing. On Monday, it was French roast. It's always French roast on Mondays, and this being a Monday, we all had French roast. Elliot complained as usual. He only likes dark Irish, but we drink our dark Irish on Thursdays, and this was a Monday. And on Monday, it's French roast. Sitting on the steps outside the Second Cup at the corner of Church and Wellesley, you can catch up on all the latest Toronto news, or gossip, depending upon your point of view, like who's dating who's sleeping with who's living together, who's not living together, who gave who the boot at the Black Eagle when he caught him playing with him in the dark corner at the end of the hallway. And you find all this out at 7:30 in the morning on the steps, where on Monday, Gordy, Elliot, Doc, and I all have French roast. It was using the environment of the steps and people who come together on a daily basis from very different parts of the world. I think if there's going to be a third book in the series, it's going to be like The Steps, because that seems to lend itself to the most in terms of experimentation and commentary. You can use the illustrations to subtly underscore what's going on. We might have guessed he'd met someone, no, not someone, the one, a towering hunk of masculinity, an insatiable love god, a man named Frank. And then, the little commentary illustration is Elliot lying on his back, looking straight up, just whistling straight out of the blue. It has nothing to do with the text, but it kind of underscores the sort of person that Elliot is, and how he's reacting to falling in love for the first time. So, like I say, if there's going to be a third book, it's probably going to wind up being like The Steps. It'll be written pieces that'll have the commentary illustrations. And I think the reason for that is because I think I've pushed the single panel about as far as I can go with it at this point. It's kind of said everything that I want it to say. And I also want to start playing with other characters, you know, like Dixie Lee and Mel.
This is the first appearance of Dixie Lee.
Okay, now who is Dixie Lee?
Dixie Lee, in a previous incarnation that I'll show you in a minute, was their neighbor in Montreal. For a while I toyed with the idea of having the boys move to Montreal. When they moved out west, Dixie followed, you know, as a character. She and her husband Mel live in a trailer.
In a trailer.
In a trailer. And I mean, she's just good old down home white trash fun folk, right? I mean, real moon pie and RC sort of people. I mean, she's just one of those, you know, those sort of fun people that you find on Oprah and Jerry Springer and the Montel Williams show. You know, people whose lives are an open book, whether you want it to be that way or not. You know, and so, you know, so old Dixie was born, you know, with "Good morning. I know it's early, but I just had to come over and say hi to our new neighbors. I'm Dixie Lee, my hubby's Mel, and we are so happy to meet you. Hope you like chocolate, hun. Oh, what an adorable place! I'm sure me and the missus are just going to be fabulous friends. So where is the little woman?" All right. She just talks up a storm.
Happy birthday!
I have to go to the bathroom?
Now, I understand. Did you have a birthday this weekend, or do you have a birthday coming up?
I have a birthday every rodeo weekend.
Do you have a birthday? Did they plan the rodeo event around your birthday? Is this your birthday present?
I think so. I tried to get them on the trifolds that they did 3 years ago. I asked them to put at the bottom, you know, sort of like rodeo events, closing ceremonies, Carla's birthday. Please bring gifts. Especially those coming from the U.S. They needed time to shop before they got here.
I've been living in Calgary now for over 3 years. Yeah, that's about right. Over 3 years. And in many respects, it is the closest thing to home that I've found in a long time. Like I said, one of my biggest regrets was leaving my grandfather's farm. And when I made the move to Canada, of course, you know, you're coming into a completely foreign country, so you're distancing yourself even more. But coming to Calgary with its Western heritage, it's sort of like coming home. The city feels, for right now, feels very comfortable because of the fact that it's a lot like the environment that I grew up in.
This particular rodeo is known on the circuit as the most fun rodeo that you can go to. We may not have we don't have a lot of techno, we don't use a lot of big names, we don't have lots of giveaways, but people show up here and they are welcomed, and they're part of the family.
You know, I can get in the truck and I can drive north towards Edmonton, and I can stop 45 minutes outside of Calgary and get out and look up and see a clear night sky with literally millions of stars. I haven't been able to see that since I was a kid, and I'd forgotten how much I missed it. And there are very few places on this planet where you can still do that.
Let me ask you about how Calgary's grown well over the past few years. How is it changing?
We got lost on the way out here, remember? I came out here 3 or 4 years ago. Actually, first visited here 6 years ago. And the town was probably half the size it is now. The population was almost doubled in the last 3 years. All that stuff over there, that wasn't there last summer. And, I mean, subdivisions are just moving in here all over the place. And I'd be willing to bet that within the next year, maybe 2, this whole area is just going to be solid subdivisions. Expensive housing. And Simons Valley will probably shut down because, you know, those kind of people aren't going to want a ranch across the street. Yeah, so it smells like horse shit all the time. It's loud and it's noisy and a lot of traffic and horse trailers. My God, it could upset the kids.
be a real shame if we lost it. Yeah.
The fluffy approach to life. You can be anything you want, even if you are 9 inches tall and only come to life with someone else's hand up your butt.
What's your name, and how long have you been doing your street art?
My name's Rob, and I've been doing it for about 3 years now.
Are you originally from Calgary, or?
From Grand Prairie, actually. My friend there invited me to come out and do it with her one day, and I did it, and I just kind of got hooked. It's fun.
How large are the works that you generally do?
Normally I try and like fill like one of these blocks of concrete. I don't know. Sometimes I'll have longer ones, sometimes bigger ones. I want to do like a huge one, like 15 by 20 feet or something like that this summer at some point. It'd be cool. I'd have lots of fun.
Were you an art student, or you had any kind of training, or just kind of pick it up?
Just through high school so far, but I've been drawing since I could hold a pen, so I don't know. Hopefully I'll get to go to ACA or something like that when I'm older and done high school.
Does it bother you that these are kind of temporary, that the rain will kind of wash them away?
Not at all. I kind of like it that way. Because it's here one day, you'll walk by and you'll see it, and it'll be gone the next day. It's kind of almost mystical that way.
If I have a concept in mind, it starts by just blocking the characters out and using a pretty rudimentary, like mannequin form in terms of the relationship of the head to the rest of the body.
So just kind of getting the characters into position.
Yeah. The next step, once I've got the bodies basically blocked in, is then going in for detail. And again, this is kind of a fetish of mine. I like putting in a lot of detail in the drawings in the sense of unexpected stuff. For example, in this one here, the Rush Limbaugh cartoon, you've got the cat asleep up on top of the pillow. You've got the newspaper that's in Doc's hand, but over his lap are the Sunday funnies. And it's those, to me, little humanistic touches that kind of ground the strip a little bit. They give you something to latch onto. It's sort of like in Tim Burrell's Leonard and Larry. One of the things, he does the same sort of thing, and the man does it to an exquisite degree. I just worship the ground this man walks on. So you wind up using, odd little details to make them into more vivid people. Over a period of time, the guys have started to dress more and more alike, as couples do, as they've been together for a long time. But early on, they had very defined wardrobes. So once it's sketched, then we go in and we ink it. And inking is actually a two-step process. There's just the simple line work, which again is done with a 95-cent black bamboo point pen, and then the characters themselves are outlined with just a little bit heavier line, which was a style thing that I started doing about 2 years into the strip. And it seems to sort of lock them visually a little bit more. You can actually see who these people are a little bit more clearly and distinguishing them from the background. It's very rare that the panel is reproduced in color. And so if I have a color one done, it's either I've done it either because I've done something for my own amusement, or it's for a specialty piece. Yeah, I work almost exclusively with colored pencil. I like the softness of it, and it seems to work really well with this kind of line work. I can do some sort of like rough penciling work, and it'll blend with the sort of rough kind of pen and ink work.
Do you do a lot of layering with the colored pencils?
Yeah.
How many layers do you do?
It depends. On the occasional instance where I've done like Doc's hair. Well, Doc's hair takes about 4 or 5 layers of color in order to get all the shades right, all the way from the highlight on the top to the shadowing on the bottom. When you're doing blonde hair and you really look at it, it's not just one color; it's half a dozen. Well, I do it in 5. Raider's easier. His is about maybe 2 or 3 layers.
Part of the work that I do is archaeological and historical reconstructions on the computer. They are full virtual 3D models. They're usually commissioned by, well, in this particular case, the University of Warwick. These are historical reproductions of medieval theaters for their particular project, which is a history of theater architecture from Greco-Roman times up to early Italian Baroque. And it's not just theater work. I've been doing archaeological reconstructions of things like this old city in Turkey that was from about 6000 BC. We're talking like the very first town. Being able to walk through that environment gives you such an overwhelming feeling of history, and how we've progressed.
This section right here is one photo. This mountain range here is one photo. This is one photo. And this here is another photo. And then, of course, these two guys here, even though in the original picture they're separated out, the bowl has actually been layered on top of this particular cowboy just for condensing. And then the reflection in the water of the hoofs down at the bottom. So this is, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5.5 photos put together. It's sort of low-level special effects, but at the same time it's taking a whole bunch of disparate things and pulling them all together into a single piece and having everyone look at it and go, oh wow. We like for them to go, oh wow.
If you're doing things electronically, and we're talking about generating artwork here, you play by a different set of rules. I know a lot of people who will start something out by doing a pencil drawing and scanning it, and then working on it from there. I don't like working that way. It's not as satisfying somehow because it is trying to combine two different mediums. When I'm doing a pen and ink drawing of Doc and Raider, there is something rather nice about just the tangible experience of drawing on paper and drawing these two guys on paper that you can't get on a computer. So it's two completely different things, and sometimes it's kind of hard to, you know, come out of one mode and go into another one, particularly if you're doing both on the same day.
Okay, and the caption to this one?
I tossed and turned so much I woke up with Marge Simpson's hair. We went on a hair thing for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Hair's funny. We're not sure why hair is funny, but hair is funny. In Doc's case, hair is very funny. Here is Titanic Fluffy.
Titanic Fluffy?
Titanic Fluffy, yes. This was done one night when we were performing the Celine Dion song That Will Not Die.
Mm-hmm.
It's a fairly simple little outfit, as you can see, but one of those things where, you know, God is in the details. The buttons, very important. You may not be able to see it, but it's there. In this particular number, we had a little toy stage that we used because this had scenery. I mean, we had a little Titanic, we had steam funnels collapsing about her, we had the scenery collapsing under her. She finally sank at the end of the song, and all that was left was a little hat floating there on the edge of the stage. It was very poignant. So she can be poignant. She can be romantic. She can also be a trashy little bitch.
Okay, okay.
This is sort of operatic Fluffy. You know, the sort of late 1970s operatic diva.
Or Beverly Sills.
Beverly Sills, yeah. That's a good comparison. She probably would do a lot of Donizetti if she could sing, which she can't, because she has cotton in her mouth all the time.